Hello, my friend, and welcome to the 576th episode of the Sales Podcast. I'm Wes Schaefer, the Sales Whisperer, your host. Today we have returning guest Nigel Green. He was on back on 434. He's got a new program around helping you hire top sales talent. Super affordable. But we get into why you need to look for someone who can throw a punch. And I like what he's talking about. I like what he's getting to in this. All right, so you are in for a treat. As I have started doing the last couple of episodes, you can skip ahead a little bit, but I want to mention a few, not even sponsors, right? These are companies that I'm using, folks that have been on the podcast, folks that have been on the CRM Sushi podcast, tools that I think can help you grow your sales regardless of your size. I've created some subdomains. You can just remember those, right? Donate. That's not a sponsor. That's just donate.thesalespodcast.com. You can send me some money. Hey, it's not a GoFundMe. It's just sending Wes and these 2 weddings in 90 days. Help a brother out. But you can do that. You can check out some other tools such as 12 Weeks to Peak. It's another free program. I just launched this, meeting with developers still. It's a long time to make apps. Oh my gosh. But, I'm saying welcome to the last hard quarter of your life. Come join us. Follow the program. Get very disciplined and detailed about your activities. And I promise you, every quarter after that will be much easier. It will be more predictable. You'll have a lot more insight into what works, okay? And it's a free program. So check that out, 12weekstopeak.com. I've mentioned a few others lately, some tools that I like. Like I said, tools that I use. Leadferno is one. I had Aaron on not too long ago, both on the Sales Podcast and the CRM Sushi Podcast. His tool, Leadferno, he says turn lurkers into leads. I love it. But leadferno.thesalespodcast.com. He's focusing on SMS, but it's a broad messaging tool. It includes Facebook Messenger, Google. It's cool, and it will help you grow your sales because SMS is super important nowadays, and I hope you know that. Okay. The Founders Card, you pay for this each year, but you get discounts on hotels, cars, products. Like I've mentioned, saved 15% on these Bose speakers that I've got. I've saved thousands on my Stripe processing fees. So check them out. Okay, go look at it. Again, they give you a little Chrome extension. So it pops up when you're on any site and it says, hey, you can save on this with your Founders Card, redeem the benefit. So pretty cool. Founders.thesalespodcast.com. Please use that URL and I'll get credit and I'll make a few nickels. If you're making outbound calls, and you should be making outbound calls, part of 12 Weeks to Peak is making outbound calls, although not at the number that would warrant a phone burner. But hey, if you want to be super efficient, phone burner is meant to help you dominate, get your team super efficient at dialing the phone and reaching people, and it still works. Every guest I have had on, at least since COVID, right? But all along, but I use COVID as kind of the delineator. It's recent enough. It was impactful enough. It changed the way we do business, changed the way we live, changed the way we view government. Although I didn't change my view. I don't trust those a-holes, but I digress. I've asked people ever since then, hey, does the phone work? And everyone has said, yes, the phone works. The phone may work better than ever right now. So I know these guys. I know Henry Evans over there. Check them out. Phoneburner.thesalespodcast.com. Okay? Go check them out and say, oh, I'm sorry. See, all these things are still new. I got to scroll through my notes. It's just burner.thesalespodcast.com. If you want to write drunk emails, instead of writing sober, or writing drunk and editing sober, just write drunk and hit send. That's what John Buchan did. He was a guest on the Sales Podcast years ago, and we've stayed friends ever since. He had a great story about being drunk and sending emails to big companies, right? Fortune 50, Fortune 100, like big companies, not the chiropractor next door, right? Not the yogurt shop in the strip mall around the corner. Big companies. Because he was bummed. He was bummed because he didn't have sales. He probably didn't have sales because he was being too, I don't know how to say this, too stick up his butt-ish. How's that? And if you know the Brits, they drink a few pints, they speak their mind, and he hit send. And he woke up the next day like, what did I do? And lo and behold, he had replies, people wanting to meet. Cool stuff. So he now has templates. He teaches you how to write sober but appear drunk. All right, how's that? So check him out, drunk.thesalespodcast.com. And then Clean 13 with the number, the letter K for clean and the number 13, clean13.salespodcast.com. I know the founder of this company as well. I use them. I have recommended them for my clients. When you have an email list, it ages, okay? Hey, I've had my Sales Whisperer since 2006, but I've heard numbers somewhere around 25% of email addresses go dormant each year. And so when you have these sitting in your database and you try to send to them, the ISPs and the ESPs, they look at this, right? Internet service provider, email service provider, they're doing their best to stop spammers. And sometimes I wonder if they really are doing their best, but I digress. But Clean 13 will scrub your list to find what they call honey traps, right? Honey holes, honey pots, whatever they call it. But they'll take an old email address that they know is no longer in use, and they'll look for people sending emails to that address. Like my mom hasn't worked for me for years and years and years, and literally every day I get an email to her. I get emails to me. When I started my company, I was a licensee of a guy, and I haven't used that name since like 2008. I still get emails and phone calls talking about that company. So scrub your list, okay? And not only does it look for those types of things, but it looks for complainers, which is pretty cool. I don't know how he does it, but you may not want to email those people, or you may want to do a special reach out to them to bring them on board, to warm them up, mo better, okay? So that's clean13.thesalespodcast.com. Check him out. You'll be glad you did. All right, so now let's bring on Nigel. Nigel Green is back in the house all the way from episode 434. Back then, we talked about harvest more sales revenue with sales management expert Nigel Green. How you like that title? But now we're talking about hiring salespeople. So welcome back, man. How the heck you been?
Man, it's been great. I appreciate you having me back on.
Should we really be talking about hiring salespeople? Man, we have a recession. We should be firing salespeople. They're just a bunch of beer drinking, golfing, whining, non-CRM updating humans. Can't we just like cut them all? Just go to AI and support chat and overseas VAs?
Well, wouldn't it be nice, right?
I mean, this is easy. Look, I'm in sales. This can't be too damn hard.
Well, so all of those individuals that you want to fire that start, that now play golf, that don't update the CRM, you probably shouldn't have hired them, which is why we're talking about hiring
so now you're turning it around, huh? So it's not you, it's me. I see how this is going to be. Permission to treat as a hostile witness, Your Honor.
Well, here's the unfortunate reality about hiring salespeople, and I'll set this up by telling you what my grandfather told me when I was first getting into business. He said, if you ever sit down at the poker table and you can't find the sucker, it's you.
It's you.
And well, a lot of sales managers, human resource professionals, think they're good at understanding people. And they may be good at understanding people, but I'm here to tell you that salespeople are a different animal, because it's not only is it their job to win in an interview, because that's what they do all day, but the second part is That's what they do all day. Every day they call on customers and they get an opportunity to try to convince, to coerce the outcome, to say what needs to be said, and they get reps. They get so many more reps at interviewing. And so back to your point, you probably should have never hired them because you lost in the interview.
Yeah.
You liked them and they won the interview because you liked them, but you didn't have a proven framework to uncover your own hiring biases, check your biases, get through the bullshit answers that salespeople are notoriously good at giving you in an interview, and get down to, are they really going to work and do the things that we need them to do to be successful in this role?
Yeah. Yeah, there are no processes for anything. I mean, but hey, I guess if there were, you and I wouldn't have jobs, huh?
Well, I don't know. I think it's changing, and I hope it's changing for the better because I don't know how active you are on LinkedIn, but I see a lot of these sales recruiters telling companies, you know, don't do this to a candidate, or why do you have all these unnecessary steps? And I tend to push back and say, what's wrong with having a lengthy interview process? What's wrong with having 6 or 7 steps? The consequence, as the data shows, is that for every bad hire you make, it's going to cost you $115,000 to $300,000. Now, in the world that I work in, healthcare, typically mid-market, equity-backed healthcare companies that have made it, you're looking at $400,000 to $600,000 to replace a producer that can carry a $1 to $2 million annual sales book of business. So, if that's the investment you're going to make, why the hell not slow down?
Mm-hmm. Yeah, I always tell people time kills deals, right? But it's two sides of that coin. You know, get some bodies in the pipeline quickly, but then take your time grilling these people. And it applies to sales, it applies to interviews, you know, take your time. But again, I don't, people usually don't have processes. They don't have sales leadership processes. They don't have interview processes.
So what I say about the process that I talk about in this course is that, well, there's 2 problems. The first problem, and I'll come back to the first problem because I want to speak to the problem that most people experience, which is what we're talking about, a lack of a process. So just because you have a lengthy in number of steps process doesn't mean you have to be slow to hire. I tell my clients the time that exists between the steps is negotiable. You just can't skip steps. The order of the steps doesn't matter. You just can't skip steps. Where we get in trouble is we skip steps. When do we skip steps? We tend to skip steps with candidates we like, which is a bigger red flag. We know them, we have some history with them, all the more reason why we need to not skip steps and run a diligent process. So that's the first thing. Time that exists in between steps is immaterial. You can go fast, go slow, don't skip steps. The real problem is, Wes, and you see this all the time, is we need the salesperson, we start interviewing people. We didn't do any of the preparation to say, okay, what goes into selling what we sell? Let's analyze the job. Okay, so now we've done the analysis to know what is required day to day, week to week. Then what are the qualifications? What kind of experience does this person need to have had? It may not even need to be in sales. It may need to be, like, they need to have been previously a customer that we're calling on, do the role of the customer. I don't know, but you have to figure out what are the qualifications. Then you have to write a job description. Most people skip all that because that doesn't, we'll get to that later. And then they've hired somebody that's really good at playing golf and it's not going to do the work. And I'm just using your example, but they're not doing what you need them to do to be successful in the role.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, you're right. And it's always the top salesperson that suddenly leaves. You know, they're the top salesperson for a reason, and that's who your competition is going to steal, or they're going to go out on their own because you've been giving them a bunch of grief, and they're like, oh hell, screw this, I'll just go do my own thing. So yeah, then they're scrambling, and then it's like going grocery shopping when you're hungry, right? You make some bad decisions.
So then they post a job. Okay. And one of the things I talk about in this course that is not a very popular opinion, but I'll get it out there. And if you don't like me, you can slide into my DMs and send me whatever pithy comment you have. But the best sales talent is not applying to jobs.
Yeah.
I can, I've interviewed over 5,000 professional salespeople, and I can still count on two hands, less than 10 people that I've hired that applied to a job description or job posting. The reason why is the person you want to come hire to be your next best sales rep is making a lot of money and being successful at the job they're in now. They're not looking for a job. People that looking for jobs in sales have been fired or are unhappy, or there's all these things that if they're fired, they probably weren't doing their job very well. Even during a downturn, they're not letting go of the entire sales team. They're letting go of the ones that are new or underperforming. So they weren't really doing the job well, or they're unhappy with their work, and that's a whole different conversation. The best sales talent you have to go find. They're not going to apply to your job. So when you find yourself your best salesperson leaves, that's probably the last thing you need to do is go post a job.
Mm-hmm. So we didn't get into your background. I mean, are you currently a recruiter, or a trainer, or where have you garnered this knowledge and experience?
So I have spent 15 years as a commercial sales leader. So I run sales. I have run sales for small and large healthcare companies. So I started out leading a sales team for a device company out of Temecula, California. We sold that to Medline in 2012. And then I
Man, you
built
should come see me.
yeah, right down the road.
I know. All
And
right.
then I built a sales team for another healthcare company that provided clinical services, and we owned and operated 22 different treatment centers across the country. And we had a large outside sales team and inside sales team, and we sold that business to Universal Health Services in 2015. I am not a recruiter. Okay, I own a staffing company, so I know a little bit about how recruiters in that business work. But what I do is I try to bridge that gap between hiring manager, because I've been that, and recruiter, because I like recruiters for hiring sales people. But recruiters want you to place their candidate so they can get a fee, and hiring managers just want somebody in the seat. And so I just say, look, let me just be the arbitrator between the two of you, because I've collectively probably done this more than both of you. And so let's make sure that we have a good fit, because if it doesn't work out after 90 days, Mr. Recruiter, I'm probably going to have you backfill it for free. And if it doesn't work out, well, then we've wasted 90, Mr. Hiring Manager. We wasted time, precious time that we're never going to get back, and slow, stagnant deal flow because we didn't have somebody in the role that should have been in the role. So my experience, Wes, is that I'm not a recruiter, but I've been a manager. And still today with my clients and in the businesses I run, I interview a lot of sales professionals.
Mm-hmm. So you're rolling out a process, and it's like, I was surprised when I saw it because it's cheap. Because you're right, they've done studies, top grading. One of the books I read many years ago. But I mean, you put a bad hire in, and it costs you a lot of money. And I mean, for a couple $100, you're mapping this out. I mean, is it a self-paced guide that like just any sales manager can go through this program, and will it eliminate the need for a recruiter, like so they can do it on their own, or will they just be more efficient in dealing with recruiters and dealing with prospective new hires?
All that is a great question. So let's start with why it's so cheap. This is not how I make a living. Okay. This is like my give back to the community of sales managers, because everything that's in this course, Wes, was taught to me by a coach that I hired or a manager or leader that I worked under. All of this is just me taking 15 years of doing the job and giving it away, making it a labor of love to put it together in a course. Now, what are you going to learn? You're going to learn that hiring salespeople is unlike any other role that you're going to hire for. And I'm going to tell you why, and I'm going to identify the traps that you don't want to step in, because I've already stepped in all of them. And then I'm going to give you tools for each phase of the hiring process. There's three. There's the prepare, then there's the identify, and then there's the screening process. So you got three different processes within the whole hiring phase. And I walk you through, and then go so far as to give you templates. Like, this is some job descriptions to look at. Here are some scorecards for the job description, which is basically a fancy word for job description is a one to many. A scorecard is a 1-to-1. This is A job description is for everyone that does this role. A scorecard is for Wes's job in the role. I give you candidate comparison tools. I teach you about how behavioral assessments work. I teach you how to be your own recruiter if you want to do it. And then I teach you how to navigate a relationship with a third party recruiter. So we cover a lot of ground. It's everything that I think you're going to uncover, including as a bonus in the course, I teach you how to onboard and successfully conduct a sales rep's 90-day review. So it's not enough just to hire them. It's only good if you keep them. And so I teach you that those first 90 days are really important and how to manage that new sales rep for the first 90 days.
Yeah. Yeah, you got to keep them. And so how do they keep them? Just give them more money? Just let them go golf a little more?
Well, no, I think you know the answer to that. The thing about the first 90 days is you got to know, we got to begin with the end in mind. Okay. You got to know what your sales cycle is, and that's going to shape what the first 90 days is going to look like. If you've got a year-long sales cycle, the first 90 days is all going to be about product knowledge, competitive landscape, just knowing how to make a cup of coffee and becoming a little bit dangerous in the discovery process. Now, if you've got a 1 week deal cycle, like some of my clients, and you've got a pretty established deal velocity and different stages, well, then maybe by day 60, they're on the phone and they've got a quota. So, but the first 90 days is about expectation management, about managing the expectation around what I need to see from you and what I'm prepared to give you. I tell everyone that's ever worked for me, it is not my responsibility for you to get trained. It's your responsibility to be trained. It's my responsibility to tell you what you need to be trained on and make sure that training's available. Either you get trained or you don't get trained. It's up to you.
So, all right, I like that. What is your take on compensation? I'm a big fan of super low base, very high commission. And maybe, like you said, based on sales cycle. I'm working with somebody right now, and I told them, pay them high guaranteed commissions that diminish, in those first 90 days, because they are on about a 90-day sales cycle. And I'm like, you're not going to get top talent to just eat ramen noodles for 90 days just because for the opportunity to work for you. Like, you got to pay them. So what do you think of that advice?
I think it works. It's a form of a bridge program, which is what I deploy a lot of times when you're going to get top talent. So a lot of times, this is where the process really is important. When you're going to take a risk at someone that you believe is going to hit the ground running quickly, they've got a baked in book of business that they're bringing, or you see something in them that leads you to believe they're going to ramp up quickly, but they're leaving a job where they've been successful and they've got a bonus or commissions that far exceed, that base or the guaranteed earnings. I think you as the sales leader have to understand the economics and say, well, if I don't hire this person, and every day that the position stays vacant, what's that cost me in lost pipeline? If I hire someone that's going to accept this low base, high commission, are they as good as the person that is, has a higher baseline? There are a lot of factors that have to be considered. And I think ultimately, I'm very comfortable with guaranteeing a salesperson's earning opportunity so that they don't take a step backwards to come work for me. But you just have to be really clear what you attach that at risk or those incentive and even the guaranteed dollars too. Like if I'm guaranteeing you, $250,000 a year, that guaranteed money comes with a lot of expectations that I plan to inspect and measure your ability to do those along the way.
What do you mean by guaranteeing? Are you guaranteeing if they perform the activities, or are you just guaranteeing? That sounds like a scary word.
Yeah, guaranteed compensation means like what I would call like a salary. Like if you do your job, you're going to get this money. Well, even a salary is at risk, right? If you if you don't do the work, you're not getting your salary, you're not going to be here, right? You're going to be terminated. And so when I say guaranteed, I just typically mean I use that interchangeably with salary, so to say, in exchange for X dollars per month in your salary. Here's the minimum accepted activity in the certain result areas that I expect from you. And if this doesn't happen, then we're going to go different directions.
How prescriptive are you with salespeople on like, do these activities, 20 outbound calls a day, 50 outbound calls a day, CRM updated every night before you go home? I mean, like how much
No, not,
leeway
I
do
don't.
you give on specific actions like that?
I don't give a rip about all that stuff. All I care about is, and generally for most sales organizations, the thing that matters most is meaningful conversations with qualified buyers. So if you can get it done in 20 calls per day, great. If it takes you 40, I'm sorry. If you don't have to make any calls and you can send emails, well, what you're buying with any salesperson is pipeline. That's what you're buying. You're buying customer pipeline. And so I think that and I should give this qualifying statement. Most of the clients I work with, Wes, have matured to the place where they know what goes into the selling cycle. It's not like a founder that's a rainmaker and now is trying to hire their first salesperson. They understand the stages of their process. They have a professional selling team. And so there are cultural norms that this individual is going to step into. And they know that they have to, in exchange for money, produce meaningful conversations. And no one's going to track all that other stuff. But I do think there are roles out there where you have to be that prescriptive. I just tend to not be excited by working in that space and don't take on work that's at that level of selling. But I think it exists, and I think there are times when you have to do it.
Yeah, I've just seen, obviously, if you're hiring like for a super senior business development person, whatever title you want to give them, a friend of mine works at a major corporation, Fortune 100, and he's literally the top salesman in the world for them. He knows what to do. But most people listening to this have small companies, small businesses, small sales teams. That's who I've dealt with a lot, the small to medium, and they don't have good processes in place. They've maybe promoted from within. Now they've got a antagonistic relationship between the sales management and the sales team. And then it maybe drives off the second one, right? Or maybe they promoted the second and that drives off the first. So now they got a double gap. This person they just promoted doesn't know jack crap about hiring, recruiting, onboarding, retaining, motivating top sales talent. So they're just really in a jam. And that one person that was promoted, there was some natural abilities, there was some hustle, some grind, but nothing really repeatable, right? Nothing transferable that they can teach the next person. Do you get into that in the training?
Well, yes, because the training itself it's a process that can be orchestrated by a sales manager. It's a process that if you're in human resources for the company and you feel like your sales manager lacks process, you can get into this course and start putting in some norms and aligning the interview steps and practices of the sales team with this course. Absolutely, it's a rinse and repeat type of course for any level of selling, for the very prescriptive to the super high level. I've done it all, and I tried to cover all of that in this course. But I mean, I think what you're speaking to are more cultural and managerial challenges that may or may not be, they could be correlated, but they may not be caused by bad hiring.
Yes. Yeah.
Yeah.
Yeah. I've just always said, like working with the small in the SMB space, I say you manage activities and pay on results. Bring somebody in and say, look, here's how here's what a typical day, a typical week is going to look like. Execute these steps, say these things, and you will be successful. But most companies, very few have anything even documented. It's just, here's the phone, here's who we go after, like, good luck. It's like, oh crap,
Yeah.
it's
So
hard to
I talk
hire and
about that.
motivate.
There's a whole module on the anatomy of a top performing salesperson. And I was able to do some work. I saw a study that Salesforce.com commissioned, and Jeremy Donovan and Aaliyah Homison go into the study's findings in their book, Leading Sales Development. What the study shows is that where you went to school, if you went to an Ivy League school or you went to junior college, has no material impact on your ability to sell. Studying business, studying finance, or marketing does not make you a better seller. The top performing salespeople have a science, technology, engineering, and mathematics background. They typically have had 2 years of experience selling somewhere else before they come to you. And here's the one that gets to all the behavioral stuff. And I love this. Just because they played a college sport, because that's my bias, I love to hire ex-college athletes, doesn't necessarily make them more successful in sales, with this exception: if they played an individual sport. So you're looking for golfers, tennis players, track stars, swimmers. Think of all the individual sports. And why is that important? So think about it. If you ever had to tell a swimmer, you just need to go in and do your laps. Have you ever had to tell a college golfer, hey, buddy, I think you really need to go to the range and hit a few more balls? They just know they got to go do the work. And it's a lonely, isolated sport. You're out there on your own. Martial arts, boxing, gymnastics, those types of sports, they know they're in the arena by themselves. And so when you hire those types of people, you just don't have to say, hey, buddy, did you update the CRM? Hey, buddy, did you make that one last call? Now, they are wired because of 15 years of playing an individual sport, that their motor better be higher than anybody else's expectations for them.
That's interesting. It's like, it makes sense. But on the flip side, I'm thinking, well, somebody, if they excelled at a sport, like, were they the captain of the football team, or some captain of the basketball team? Did that make them better? So,
well, so that's where the process allows you to tease that stuff out, right? And there are different stages in the process that allow you to uncover a couple of really important stages. Like, everything in the process has to be timestamped. So if you have a commitment, if you, the salesperson, have a commitment in the interview process, whether it be to take a personality assessment or to send a written assessment, it's all time based. And if you can't get it in on time, well, then it's not going to work. But it allows for, in my process, especially in the rapid fire interview, which is one of the steps, to really uncover what they're wired at. And I found, Wes, some top performers that never played an individual sport, but later in life they got into running marathons, or they picked up BJJ when they were third. They got into recovery and felt like that Brazilian Jiu Jitsu was a way for them to. And so, like, you just got to find those things. Like, college athletics is one path to becoming a maniac. There are a lot of other things that happen in life where you can find an individual where they've got this unrelenting willingness to compete outside of work. Those tend to do really well in sales.
I think you're picking on me with that jiu-jitsu stuff, man. Why you got to be like that?
Dude, if I could hire let me just say this. When I think of, for the last 15 years, everyone that I know that's won Chairman's Club or like Rep of the Year, so 15 years, I think 7 of them have some relationship with Brazilian Jiu-Jitsu or competitive boxing.
Dang.
Males and females.
Cool.
There's just been something about willing to go in there and take it that makes them a top performer.
We don't take it, man. We dish it out. Okay.
Doesn't start that way.
No, it does not. I'm jacked up right now.
Well,
Been
when I
fighting
first
this.
got into boxing, I started my boxing career at 25, and I played football all my life. So I thought I was tough. I came from one of the hardest team sports, and we were just in the gym running, jumping rope, and doing these calisthenics. And I was like about to throw up in the garbage can. And my trainer looked at me and he said, "What's wrong? No one's even hit you yet." That just shows you how hard those kinds of sports are. And you want people in your sales organization that are wired like that, that love it.
I know. There's this meme that goes around. This guy's laying on the mat crying. It's like, I just can't do this anymore. And they're like, we're 20 seconds into the warm up, Joe.
That was me when I first got into boxing. I'm like, these guys are nuts, and nobody hit me in the face yet.
Yeah. Yeah. It's how, I mean, jiu-jitsu, you just get wrecked forever. I mean, I've done it 5.5 years now, and I'm literally wrecked. I went to the chiropractor a couple weeks ago, and after Friday, I rolled this big black belt, and he just, like, I'm giving him a run for his money. He's still getting me, but I'm just destroyed. Like, I had to take a nap Saturday, took a 2-hour nap yesterday. Like, I got knots in my back. I'm like, I literally have to tell him, I can't roll with you for a while. He just goes too hard.
And so if you're listening to this, you're like, well, what are these guys talking about? What I want you to hear is that the people that do that for fun, rarely, in my experience, do I have to talk to them about the shitty part of their job that needs to be done in order for them to keep the position they've earned on the team. Meaning, in order for them to be in good standings with their peers and the business, I don't have to talk to these people about CRM, making another call, sending out good meeting notes, responding to email, showing up on time. I don't have to have those conversations.
Yeah.
That's why we're talking about this. It's not because you and I like martial arts. It's because there's something to it.
Sure. Yeah, my son gets it now. He's trained like 3 years now, but he, like, once you start jujitsu, everything applies. Everything in life applies to jujitsu and vice versa. It's such a grind. Such a grind. Nobody's good in the beginning. And I, like you, I played football all the way into college, and it's like I thought my shit didn't stink, and then you go roll. And I had just started. I just did a 3.5 mile swim across Tampa Bay. I'm like, hey, I'm in shape. I'm tough. Destroyed, wrecked, and it's like, okay, I'm gonna just tiptoe out of here and never tell anybody I ever tried it, or it's like I'm gonna stay until I figure out what this voodoo magic is, because it's crazy.
I'm with you.
Oh, I watch these boxing videos, man, on Instagram. You know that dude, that young kid, King Ray or King Anthony? What's his name?
I'm not
Tall,
familiar with
skinny
him.
boy. Oh, he's, I don't know, 8 million followers or something on Instagram. Fastest hands I've ever seen. It just destroying people, and you see just the hand-eye coordination and the power, like, of a. It's like golf, right? You hear a professional hit a golf ball, it's different. It's a different sound, thump. Same thing with a punch, right? You watch these guys. I was watching the guy just hit a bag, and it's like, oh, okay, I don't want to get hit by that guy. It's like I'm gonna be 10 feet away from him, or I'm gonna be hugging him. There's no in between.
Yeah.
I do not want to get hit by that guy. It's just different. That's good stuff. So your course, you gave me a link for our listeners. I made a little shortening code. So how you like this one? It's Nigel Hiring. NigelHiring.thesalespodcast.com. They can get to your course. And it is super affordable. I honestly thought there was a typo, because the things I see out there are like thousands of dollars. And I'm glad you explained it, that, I mean, this isn't your main bread and butter. Because I, like, my Make Every Sale course is like $150. I mean, I'm like, buy it, don't buy it. It's like, I'm gonna put food on the table, but you're gonna get better if you go buy it and go follow it. So if you hire salespeople, if you manage salespeople, put this in your library, because I guarantee you can get better. I guarantee you're making some mistakes in whatever process you have, because let's face it, it's not their main job, right? And so you're buried with, reporting to the board, to the, executive staff, whatever, traveling, pipeline, whatever. And so it can be a grind to be a good hiring manager, but it can be very rewarding too, right? Once you get it right, oh my gosh.
You're right. It's a couple of things. You talked about the price, and I'll say one more thing because I used to run a company, Story Brand, and we had expensive courses, and what you're paying for there is production quality. So it's done in a nice studio, but there's not 4 camera angles and lighting, and
Yeah.
I didn't have a makeup artist. It's just me and you talking, bro. We're just getting better. And then the other thing you said, it's not your main job, and you're right. It is a aspect of being a good sales leader. However, this is why I started with hiring salespeople versus managing the board course. If you lead a sales team, you're like, well, he's right. It's one aspect of my job. Well, it's the one that if you don't get it right, you will be short for your post.
Yeah, you don't have a
If you
job.
can't figure this out, you will be back to being a salesperson or looking for a job really quickly.
Yep.
That's like if you run a college sport, or especially college football, because you and I love it. If you don't recruit, it don't matter how good you are at X's and O's. College football is won with Jimmys and Joes, not X's and O's. Mm-hmm. And if you can't get Jimmys and Joes, you're not going to win. And this is about getting Jimmys and Joes.
Yeah, I tell people all the time, I guarantee you, when Nick Saban holds up that trophy, as soon as he sets it down, it's somebody's handing them a cell phone because they're saying, I got Jimmy on the phone. I got Joe on the phone. That 5-star recruit from Florida, from Alabama, from Texas. They are nonstop recruiting machines. And that's the job. That's the job of a salesman. I always tell people that. So the number one job of a sales manager, in my opinion, is to recruit. It doesn't mean you're always hiring, but you're always turning over stones. Because when you find that superstar, like, you'll make room for a superstar.
And I found that something common about every instance when a top performer has left, and without any exception, every time a top performer leaves, it's always at a time that was inconvenient to me. And so I'll tell the folks that I coach now, and I'm like, so you've had a full team for 7 months now. What's your recruiting pipeline look like? Because you're down to months and days before somebody leaves in this world. 7 months of no disruption on your team, buddy, buckle up. So who you got? And I make everyone that I coach bring to when we do our one-on-ones, which is once a month, they have to show me 3 LinkedIn profiles of individuals that don't work for them, they've had conversations with, and that their CEO has given them permission. If they wanted to, they could hire them, meaning that they could put someone on a PIP and move them out, or just go above and beyond budget and go hire these people. Because I just believe so much in the fact that you got to have your next 5-star recruit ready to lace them up and go.
Mm-hmm. Well, is it rude or unprofessional or unseemly to be trying to steal your competitors' people?
No, I don't think so. I mean, why would you not? I mean, do you want to win, or do you want to be nice? And it's worth stating too that not all of these, next up LinkedIn profiles come from competitors. In fact, one distinction I want to make, and I talk about this in the course, some of the best reps that you can hire sell something that doesn't compete with you to the customers, that they have the attention of your customer in an unrelated product category. And so sometimes the best way to go get your next best rep is to ask your customer, hey, outside of my guy, because I know you love my sales rep, who else do you love spending time with? And what do you like about who they are? And they're going to tell you some of the vendors that they work with, like, Sally's great. Amy is world-class. And like, Amy sells you this? Huh. Oh, but Amy, because of what she sells, has the attention of all these other customers that I don't have. I can just teach her how to sell this, and she's already got the relationships.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, smart. Yeah, we tend to make things a little harder, more complicated than they need to be, huh?
We're full of it, aren't we?
Who's we? I'm not.
I know some people, myself included, that can be full of it.
All right, maybe I am sometimes, but I'm getting better.
Good.
I'm drinking fiber.
Glad you're working on it.
All right, Nigel. So nigelhiring.thesalespodcast.com. I was just telling you, I'm learning about subdomains, man. Like I've always known about them. I just didn't know to do them through GoDaddy. But now I know. So check it out and we can track it. And that's the course. So, man, if you ever come back to Temecula, you gotta look a brother up.
I will. I'll hit you up for sure.
All right, man. Thanks for coming back. It's good to see you.
Wes, thank you so much for having me back on. It's always a pleasure to riff with you.
All right, dude. Have a good day. So get you some of that, huh? nigelhiring.thesalespodcast.com. That way we can track it. All right. Check your show notes for other links, drunk emails, founder's card, lead Furno. Hey, and my CRM quiz. I haven't mentioned that in a while. Take that quiz, spits out some answers. Then you get a link to my calendar, and for free, we will discuss it, see what questions you might still have, help you make the best decision. All right. Thanks for listening. I'll go sell something.